Hey there everybody, I'm Abby from Abbi Kirsten Collections, and I'm really excited today because I'm going to be sharing with you all of my favorite craft vinyl hacks. These hacks are amazing. They're things that I have picked up over the last 10 years of crafting as a Cricut owner, and they are things that will save your sanity and keep you from getting frustrated, and they will also keep you organized in your craft space. If you want to know the exact resources for things that I'm mentioning throughout this video, you can check out the blog post that goes with this below, and you will be able to click directly on those links and you will find everything that I am referencing. I can't wait to share these hacks with you, so let's go ahead and get started and I'll tell you about my most favorite Cricut vinyl hacks. My first vinyl hack for you is to use slat bands to keep your vinyl rolled nice and tight and meaty. This works good for Cricut Joy vinyl and full rolls of vinyl as well. You can find these on Amazon, and I have links for them below for you. Second is how to store your vinyl scraps. I've used a 3-ring binder here and zippable pouches that are clear. Again, finding these on Amazon, and I have links below for you. And I store all of my vinyl scraps in here. I can easily see what it is that I have, what I need to weed still, and any scraps that I can still use for projects. And I can keep them all neat, flat, and safe inside of these pouches. For me, it's always hard to keep track of my favorite vinyl brands, so I like to use a metal ring, and I like to keep track of my favorite vinyl brands with swatches on a metal ring, and then I even place the name of them on the back and the website that I got them off of so that I always know where to order more when I run out. Next up, you can use parchment paper to successfully layer your vinyl together. In order to do this, cut a piece of parchment paper off and place it on top of the base piece of your vinyl, and then make sure you weed and have transferred your other vinyl right onto the transfer tape. So this is my top layer here, and I'm placing it over with the parchment paper in between, and this allows me to scoot it around with the help of the parchment paper until I'm happy with the placement of it. Once I'm happy with the placement, I push a little bit of that transfer tape down onto the exposed liner and slide the parchment paper out, and then I go ahead and burnish the design and lift the 2-layer design up to add to my project. When working with adding vinyl to curved surfaces, it can be extremely helpful to cut little slits all around your transfer tape. And the reason for this is it allows the transfer tape to be more flexible and will allow you to work the vinyl onto the curved surface much easier. I've added little snips all the way around this design on all 4 sides. And then I start by placing the vinyl down, pushing in the middle first. Then I work the design onto the curved surface by pushing from the inner part of the design to the outer part of the design. And this is the best way to get vinyl onto curved surfaces. Those slits really help the transfer process so much easier. I also do this when I make ornaments at Christmas time. The next vinyl tip is to always use a straight cutter for neat edges when trimming your vinyl. Straight cutter will ensure that you're getting the most out of your vinyl material by keeping the edges completely perpendicular and straight. Next, use a nail polish holder or a weeding ring. Pull off your little scraps when you're weeding your vinyl and put it right in there so that you're not getting little scraps all over your desk. And it also is a great place to clean off the tip of your weeding tool as you are pulling each of the pieces off of your designs when you're weeding. If you do not have a bright pad, then hold up your designs to a well-lit window and you can achieve the same effect for free. So this is really handy, especially when you're working with dark colors of vinyl and it can be challenging to see those weeding lines. Many of us struggle with getting our vinyl to transfer to the transfer tape, so a couple of tips for this is to put your transfer tape on. Of course, burnish the front of your vinyl by rubbing it with a Cricut scraper or a credit card. But you don't want to stop there. You want to flip the design over, and you also want to burnish it from the back side as well. So always make sure when you're done burnishing the front that you also burnish on the back and forth really firmly with a Cricut scraper tool or a credit card. When you are done burnishing your design, it is really important to always lift the liner away from the transfer tape and not the transfer tape from the liner. Oftentimes if we try and lift our transfer tape up instead of the liner up, then we will not be able to actually get it off. If you still struggle with this at all, you can always crease and bend at any point that the design is not releasing and then gently roll it back, and that usually achieves a successful transfer, especially when you're working with the smart vinyl, which can be a little extra challenging. There we go. If you have a pegboard in your craft room, you can find these pegboard paper holders that go in them, and you can stack your vinyl that way as a storage method. Another way I like to store my vinyl is also in wood bins. It's really easy to be able to just pull up what you're looking for and you can see everything in one spot. And these wood bins can hold a lot. Check your local craft stores for similar wood bins like these. My most favorite way to store vinyl is to use a bookshelf and some plastic bins, and to label the plastic bins with the type of vinyl that I'm storing in each of the bins, and then you're able to pull out these bins and find all the vinyl you need in a moment's notice. It's visually appealing, you can see everything that you have, and you can keep things really organized by type and color and by method, whether it's, you know, a vinyl or an iron-on vinyl or a foil or a party foil. So I absolutely love using a bookshelf to store rolls of vinyl, as you can see here. Another method for helping you layer your vinyl successfully is to add what's called a registration dot or a little registration square and attach it to each of the layers in your design so that when you cut it out, you can actually use it as a guide to line up your vinyl layers. So to prep something like that in Design Space, you would grab a simple tool. I like to use a square, and I refer to it kind of as a dot, but it's actually shaped like a square. And you just make it really tiny, something like an inch or so is fine. And I'm going to place it right here close to the design, and then I'm going to duplicate it 2 times because there are 3 layers here. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to select all 3 of these squares. So I'm going to hold my shift key and I'm just going to click on all 3 of those squares so they're selected. I'm going to go over to the align button at the top of the menu and I'm going to center all 3 of those together. It's going to look like there's just one square there, but they're all stacked right on top of each other. Go ahead and select one of your squares in the layers panel and then click on one of these colored layers. So in my case it's going to be the tail here, and I'm going to hit the attach button, and it did change the color of my design there, so let me just put that back to a better color. And then I'm going to repeat the process again. I'm selecting the next square, and then I'm going to select the term Mermama here, and I'm going to attach that. Again, it changed my color, so I'm just going to change that back real quick. And I'm going to grab the last square that's hiding underneath all of those, and I'm also going to grab the last layer here, which is that darker green layer. And I'm going to use my attach tool, and it jumped that forward. It's not a big deal. We can just use that arrange button and send it to the back. And now we would cut this design out just as we normally would. The thing is when we layer these together, we will have cut these out in 3 different colors, and we will have 3 different pieces of transfer tape. But we will be able to use these little square dots that we've put here as a means of lining them up. So let me show you what that looks like. So I've added that one layer on there. I'm going to burnish it, and then once I've burnished that layer, I will gently peel the transfer tape off, or I will So I'm peeling the liner back from the transfer tape for those first 2 layers you saw me layer. And then we'll also do the same thing with the word Mermama. And we're basically using those little square dots in order to help us make sure our layers stay perfectly aligned. I'm going to repeat the process here, and I'm going to line up the same little square dot just as before and place it on top of the purple one there. Once I've placed that, then I can let the rest of the design fall into place, and I know it will be exactly where it's supposed to. And then I'll go through the process of burnishing the design and lifting it from the liner. And then before you go and actually add this design to your blank, you'll just want to make sure that you trim off the little square dot, and that won't end up on your final design. And there we go. Now I have a perfectly aligned layered design using little registration dots. So we all end up with those tiny little scraps of vinyl that we really don't want to throw away, but we don't know really how to reuse either. So I like to repurpose them into sort of putting them all together like a puzzle on my mat, and then I'll cut them out with a very simple shape. In my case here, I'm just doing a heart, and I'll actually cut all the scraps out with a heart, and it'll sort of create a vinyl scrap collage. And that's what this looks like here when it's done. So it's a fun way to just play around with using those vinyl scraps as a means of making sort of a collage with all the scraps look really cool and beautiful. It can be really something fun that you could do with your kids especially. My last vinyl hack for you today is how to remove bubbles from your vinyl. So I like to use just a straight pin from my sewing kit, and anywhere where there's an unsightly bubble when I've placed my vinyl down and I just can't get it out with my scraper, then I'll grab that little straight pin and I will ever so gently poke a tiny little hole into that bubble. Now, very gentle little poke. You do not want to dig around in there or anything like that. It is meant to be just a tiny little prick, and that is it. It's enough to push the air out. If you use your finger or your scraper after poking it, you can push the air out and it will be almost completely invisible, and then that way you don't have to redo your design. I would love to know what other vinyl hacks you've discovered. Share them with me below in the comments. Make sure you subscribe, and if you would like links for any of the resources that I mentioned or any of the tools you saw here in this video, you can find them below in the video description with a link to the blog post with all of these hacks, and there's also several more of them in that blog post that I did not put in this video here, so make sure you check that out.